This is going to sound absolutely wild, maybe even unbelievable, but trust me, it's my life. What if the person you loved most, the one who literally gave you life, used the cruelest lie imaginable to manipulate you? What if your own mother faked cancer just to get you back home? Sounds like a made for TV movie, right? Except it was my reality, a twisted knot of love guilt, and the kind of betrayal that leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew. I'm still untangling it piece by painful piece, trying to figure out how a daughter's devotion could be weaponized so effectively. It started subtly, like a whisper in the wind that you almost miss. I was living my dream life in Portland, Oregon. My tiny studio apartment in the Alphabet District was filled with sunshine and the scent of freshly ground coffee. I had a job I loved as a graphic designer at a cool indie agency, a vibrant circle of friends, and a Saturday morning routine that involved hiking Forest Park and then hitting up the farmer's market. My life felt complete. My mom, Martha, was back in our sleepy hometown of Maplewood, Ohio. We talked a few times a week, usually quick check-ins. She'd ask about my work, my friends, if I was eating enough kale. Standard mom stuff. Then the calls started getting longer. Her voice, usually so bright and full of life, began to sound tired. "Oh, just a bit under the weather, honey," she'd say, waving off my concern. "Must be this damp Ohio winter." But it wasn't just the winter. There was a lingering cough, a shortness of breath. She'd try to hide a new fragility in her tone. My younger sister Sarah, still living at home, would corroborate, "Mom's just been a little off, Jen. Nothing to worry about." But I was worried. My mom was a force of nature, a woman who rarely got sick, who gardened tirelessly, and volunteered at the local animal shelter. This was out of character. Then came the first oblique mention. "I had a few tests done, just routine," she said one evening, her voice a little too casual. My stomach tightened. "Tests for what, Mom?" I pressed. She sighed a deep, weary sound. "Oh, just aches and pains. Getting old, I guess." I didn't buy it for a second. Over the next few weeks, the hints grew less subtle. She'd mention doctor's appointments, waiting for results, feeling so drained. The emotional manipulation began to seep in, slow and insidious. "I just wish I had my girls closer." She'd lament, a tearful catch in her voice. "It's hard doing all this alone." I felt a knot of guilt tightening in my chest. I loved my life in Portland, but my mom was everything to me. She was my rock, my biggest cheerleader, the one who taught me to draw and encouraged me to chase my dreams. The thought of her struggling alone while I was living it up thousands of miles away gnawed at me. My friends noticed my distraction. "Everything okay, Jen?" they'd ask, seeing the worried frown etched on my face. I'd just shake my head, unable to articulate the vague, growing dread. Then the bombshell dropped. It was a Tuesday evening, a call that forever sliced my life into before and after. Her voice was thin, fragile, almost unrecognizable. "Jen, honey," she whispered. "The doctors, they found something?" My heart seized. I couldn't breathe. "What, Mom? What did they find?" The silence stretched thick with unspoken fear. It's cancer, sweetie. Lung cancer. They said it's aggressive." The world tilted. My vibrant, sun-drenched apartment turned dark. I remember dropping the phone, sliding down the wall, and just sobbing. My strong, invincible mom. Cancer. Aggressive lung cancer. It felt like a cruel joke, a cosmic error. My life in Portland, my dreams, my carefully constructed independence. It all felt utterly meaningless in the face of this devastating news. My only thought was, I have to go home. I have to be with her. The next day, I called my boss, packed a small suitcase, and booked the first flight to Ohio. My life in Portland, my carefully built future, paused indefinitely. Little did I know the real pause, the real unraveling was yet to begin. The moment I stepped off that plane in Ohio, it was like entering a different dimension. The vibrant energy of Portland was replaced by the somber, hushed tones of a household consumed by illness. Mom looked different. Not skeletal or gaunt, but definitely frail. Her usually meticulous hair was a little disheveled, and there was a constant, almost imperceptible tremor in her hands. She clung to me when I arrived, her embrace weak but desperate. "My girl." She sobbed into my shoulder. "I knew you'd come." And I had. I put my life on hold without a second thought. The first few weeks were a blur of doctor's appointments, obscure medical terms, and Mom's vague, tearful pronouncements. She was undergoing intensive treatment, though she never specified what kind. "It's too much for you to worry about, honey," she'd say, waving a dismissive hand when I asked about her medications or schedule. Just be here with me. And I was. I cooked, I cleaned, I drove her to her countless appointments, which always seemed to be at facilities I hadn't heard of or were far out of town. I found myself becoming her full-time caretaker, her emotional anchor. My sister Sarah would occasionally pop in, offer a sympathetic glance, then retreat to her own life, leaving me to handle the brunt of Mom's illness. But then tiny cracks started appearing in the meticulously constructed facade. Little things at first. I noticed Mom still had her vibrant appetite even after a chemo session she claimed left her nauseous. She'd discreetly pick at her food, then finish off a full plate of mashed potatoes when she thought I wasn't looking. She still had energy for her gardening, puttering around the backyard for hours, something that seemed utterly impossible for someone undergoing aggressive cancer treatment. And her hair? It never fell out. Not a single strand. When I gently brought it up, she'd pat her head and say, "Oh, it's a miracle, isn't it? The doctors say it's a rare side effect of this new drug." I tried to tell myself it was a blessing, a small victory, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The biggest red flag, though, was the lack of tangible evidence. No hospital wristbands, no doctor's notes. I could find no detailed explanations from her oncologist. When I asked about her treatment plan, she'd get defensive, even angry. "Are you questioning me, Jen? Do you think I'd lie about something like this?" Her eyes would fill with tears, and the guilt would wash over me, drowning out my rational concerns. "Of course not, Mom." I'd quickly reassure her, hating myself for even having such a thought. One afternoon, while Mom was supposedly at a physiotherapy session for her weakened lungs, I decided to do something I knew was wrong, but my gut wouldn't let me ignore it. I started looking. I went through her medicine cabinet. Empty, her bedside table, nothing but a few vitamins. Then my eyes fell on her old worn leather briefcase tucked away in the back of her closet. It felt heavy, filled with an unspoken truth. My hands trembled as I unlatched it. Inside, neatly organized, were stacks of papers. I expected medical records, lab results, maybe even a diagnosis report. Instead, I found empty pill bottles, their labels peeled off, and dozens of printouts from online forums. Forums about terminal illness, about grief, about coping with a loved one's cancer. And then my heart froze. A file marked scripts. Inside, meticulously written, were notes: how to sound breathless, symptoms to mention fatigue, cough, minor weight loss, responses to how are you feeling. There were even printed articles about psychological effects of long-distance relationships and how to encourage adult children to move home. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just the sheer volume of material, it was the chilling precision of it all. This wasn't a sick woman, this was an actress, a meticulous, calculating actress. The betrayal hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. My mom, my loving, supportive mom, had faked cancer. She had orchestrated this elaborate, cruel charade, not just to get me home, but to trap me here. The nausea I thought she was experiencing was actually the nausea twisting my own stomach. The weakness I thought she felt was the weakness in my knees as the truth sucker punched me. The tears she shed weren't from illness, they were the tears of a masterful manipulator. My whole world once again tilted on its axis, but this time it wasn't fear that gripped me, but a cold, burning rage. The discovery of those scripts didn't just make my blood run cold, it set it on fire. Every tearful plea, every weak embrace, every vague medical excuse flashed through my mind, twisted into something grotesque. My mom, the woman I had dropped everything for, had pulled off the most heinous emotional con imaginable. I locked the briefcase, stuffed it back where I found it, and stumbled out of her room, my head spinning. I felt like I was going to throw up. The air in the house, which had felt stiflingly heavy with her supposed illness, now felt suffocated by her deception. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, mechanically doing chores, making dinner, but my mind was a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and confusion. How could she? How could my own mother be so cruel, so manipulative? My heart ached with a pain far deeper than any grief over her supposed illness. This was the agony of profound betrayal, of having your love and devotion exploited for selfish gain. I tried to reach Sarah, but she didn't pick up. I felt utterly alone, stranded in this house of lies. That evening, Mom came home humming a little tune. She looked fine. Too fine. Her cheeks had a healthy flush, her eyes sparkled, and there was an undeniable lightness in her step. "Had a great session, honey," she chirped, patting my arm. feeling much stronger today. The words meant to reassure felt like sharp knives twisting in my gut. My hands clenched at my sides. This charade had to end. Mom, I said, my voice barely a whisper, but laced with a tremor of pure fury. She turned, her smile faltering as she saw the storm brewing in my eyes. What is it, sweetie? You look pale. Don't sweetie me. I spat the words coming out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't stop them. What kind of session did you have today, Mom? A script reading session. Her face went blank, then a flicker of panic crossed her features. What are you talking about, Jen? Are you feeling all right? No, I'm not feeling all right, I shouted, the dam, finally breaking. I'm feeling like I've been played for a fool. I'm feeling like my mother, the woman I trusted more than anyone, lied to me, pretended to be dying, just to drag me back here. My voice cracked, tears blurring my vision. I saw them, Mom. The empty pill bottles, the forums, the scripts. How could you do this? She recoiled, her face draining of color. Jen, please, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut her off, my voice rising. You faked cancer, Mom, cancer. Do you have any idea what you put me through? The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the guilt. I quit my job. I abandoned my life because I thought you were dying. And it was all a lie. I could feel the heat radiating from my face, my body trembling with the force of my emotions. She started to cry, real tears this time, but they felt hollow. I was just so lonely, Jen. You were so far away and I missed you so much I didn't know what else to do. Her voice was pleading, desperate. Lonely. I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Lonely. So you thought faking a life-threatening illness was the answer? You thought that was a loving thing to do to your daughter? I pointed a trembling finger at her. That wasn't love, Mom. That was psychological warfare. That was emotional abuse. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with the weight of my accusation. She stood there, deflated, her shoulders slumped. The manipulative act was gone, replaced by a defeated, almost pathetic figure. For a moment, I almost felt a flicker of pity, but then the image of those scripts flashed in my mind again, and it vanished. I'm leaving, Mom. I said, my voice quiet now but firm with an unshakable resolve. I can't stay here. Not like this. Not with you. Her head snapped up. No, Jen, please don't leave me. I need you. No, I replied, shaking my head. You don't need me, Mom. You just needed a captive audience. And I won't be that anymore. The decision, though heartbreaking, felt undeniably right. The choice was clear: succumb to her manipulation and be miserable, or choose myself no matter how painful. I had to leave. For my own sanity, for my own healing, I had to walk away from the woman who had shattered my trust in the most unimaginable way. Leaving was harder than I thought, even with the fury still simmering in my veins. The goodbye was brief, choked with her desperate pleas and my own steely resolve. I didn't look back as I got into the taxi, but her cries echoed in my ears all the way to the airport. The flight back to Portland felt impossibly long, every mile, a painful separation from a person I still loved despite everything. But it was also a journey towards freedom, a necessary escape from the suffocating web of her lies. When I landed in Portland, my apartment felt like a sanctuary, a familiar space that held no trace of her deception. But the emotional scars were deep. I spent weeks just trying to process it all. The anger slowly gave way to a profound sadness, a grief not for a lost loved one, but for a lost version of my mother, the one I had always believed in. I cut off contact with her for a while, needing space to breathe, to heal, to understand. Sarah eventually called, offering a half-hearted apology for not seeing it sooner, for letting me bear the brunt. It was a start, but the trust with her was also shaken. Healing isn't linear, and it certainly isn't pretty. There were days I'd wake up feeling completely hollow, questioning every interaction I'd ever had with her, wondering if anything was real. Therapy became my lifeline. My therapist helped me understand the dynamics of emotional manipulation, how a parent's insecurity or need for control can manifest in such destructive ways. It wasn't about me, she explained. It was about her and her inability to cope with her own loneliness or fear of abandonment in a healthy way. That realization, while not excusing her actions, slowly began to chip away at the crushing weight of my guilt. I eventually got my old job back, though it took time to regain my focus. My friends rallied around me, offering a safe space to vent, to cry, to simply be. They didn't judge, they just listened, and their unwavering support was a balm to my raw wounds. Slowly, tentatively, I started rebuilding my life. I found a new sense of independence, a fierce self reliance that had been buried under years of dutiful daughterhood. I learned to set boundaries not just with my mother, but in all my relationships. I learned that loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to destroy you. The experience taught me a brutal yet invaluable lesson about trust. It's not given blindly, it's earned, and once shattered, it takes an immense amount of effort and often professional help to even begin to piece it back together. My relationship with my mother is, and likely always will be, complicated. We speak now, but our conversations are superficial, carefully guarded. The easy intimacy, the unquestioning love is gone. It's a wound that may never fully close, but it has scarred over, making me stronger, more resilient. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: your peace of mind, your mental health, and your emotional well being are paramount. No matter how much you love someone, no matter how much guilt they try to lay on you, you are not responsible for their happiness at the cost of your own. Boundaries are not selfish, they are essential for survival. And sometimes the hardest act of love is walking away, not just for yourself, but for the hope of a healthier future. Have you ever had to draw a difficult line with someone you love, knowing it would change your relationship forever? What was that like for you?